Revealed my father's absence and favoritism in front of the whole family after being ambushed at a relative's birthday party. I'm 23 and I'm the only daughter in my family, with 2 brothers, one 22, the other 26. My mom died when I was just 6, so until I turned 8, it was the 3 of us with my dad, trying to make sense of everything and keep going. Then he married Barbara. She had 2 kids of her own, a girl a year older than me and a boy 3 years older. The minute we all moved in together, the new rules of the house became painfully clear. Barbara's kids each got their own rooms, while my brothers and I, the original siblings, were cramped together, sharing just one. That single act set the tone for our new reality. Every little thing in that house revolved around Barbara's kids. Turning on the TV always meant we had to let them choose what to watch, or Barbara would scold us. Those weren't just inconvenient moments, but signposts pointing to where my brothers and I stood in that house. It was even more obvious on birthdays and at Christmas. Barbara's kids would have these mountains of gifts, the latest gaming consoles, shiny new TVs, expensive gadgets, while my brothers and I sat with piles of useless odds and ends, the kind of presents you'd find in discount bins. Our 3 piles combined never even matched up to one of theirs. About a year after our families merged, Barbara insisted her kids start calling my dad Dad. He was suddenly their father, too. For us? We weren't even allowed to call her Mom. Not that I'd wanted to, but the point was always made clear. I'm just Barbara to you. My dad enabled every bit of her favoritism and, soon enough, started acting that way himself. Barbara's daughter ended up at my school, and we played on the same netball team. When we were 14, our team planned a tournament in Paris, with 2 days at Disneyland. I was ecstatic, already packing in my mind. Then my dad and Barbara sat us down and told us there was only enough money for one of us to go. Of course, they sent Barbara's daughter, claiming it made sense because she was older and leaving school soon. The trip would never come around again, and both of us were 18 players. They both worked and easily could have paid for both of us, they just chose not to. Life at home with them darkened quickly. Barbara started physically punishing my older brother within a year of us living together. She turned on me when I was 10, and not long after, my dad followed suit, slapping, screaming, punishing us for being disrespectful. I'll never forget the time he slapped me so hard I had a hand-shaped bruise on my thigh for a full week. The terror I felt every time I had to change for P.E. or netball, hoping no one would see the mark, still sits with me. Barbara's kids? They skated by with no punishment at all. Not even a don't do that when they were vile to us. Meanwhile, my brothers and I faced things like cold showers. Barbara would stand there, watch us, and make sure we stayed under the freezing water, all under the guise of discipline. My dad was fully aware. If he caught us doing something wrong, he'd shout, slap, and then call Barbara to bring on another round of punishment. When her kids turned 17, my dad paid for their driving lessons, and even bought each of them a car. My brothers and I were flatly denied anything like that. Then, when Barbara's son, who was the same age as my oldest brother, left for university, my dad and Barbara paid the full rent for his own 1-bedroom flat so he wouldn't have to live in student housing. My brother, meanwhile, had to take out loans, work part-time, and cram into a shared flat just to attend uni. By the time my brother was 21, about to graduate, he landed a job and was able to rent his own place. He offered both me and my younger brother a spot at his, even though it was just a 1-bed flat. For us, privacy was a luxury. We'd shared a bedroom for most of our lives anyway. We were just desperate to break free from Barbara, my dad, and the rest. The 3 of us walked out and cut all contact that very day. Fast forward to last weekend. Our dad's parents, our grandparents, knew we'd all cut him off, though they never really knew why. They invited us to a cousin's birthday at their house, assuring us Dad and Barbara wouldn't be there. Reluctantly, we showed up, only to find my dad and Barbara there too. Maybe our grandparents were trying to fix what they didn't understand was broken, but either way, we were furious and decided to leave. Barbara, always sharp-tongued, sniped about ungrateful children ruining family and a birthday, while my dad stared at the floor. That was it for me. I turned and spoke loudly. Honestly, I meant every word for the rest of my family too, telling Barbara and everyone else exactly who'd ruined our family. I laid it all out. Their abuse, neglect, the overt favoritism, the physical punishments, the way Barbara would fly into a rage if we dared talk about our own mom or look at her photos, while her kids got everything. We walked out then and there. Afterwards, my phone buzzed with messages from our grandparents, aunt, and uncle, saying they had no idea what we'd endured, that maybe trying to get us all together was supposed to mend things. But then came the criticism. I shouldn't have said all that in front of everyone, it should have been private. But after everything, I just couldn't stay silent, not after years of silence and pretending. My brothers agree with me, even if the rest of my family can't see it yet. And I know I wasn't wrong to finally speak the truth. Update 1. I am so unbelievably mad right now. After everything that happened, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I created a group chat with everyone on my dad's side of the family. I sent out the post describing everything we'd been through, made sure to paste what I wrote in case anyone couldn't be bothered to click the link, and even followed up with another message where I went into details about the abuse that all of us suffered, stuff I hadn't felt comfortable including in the original post. My brothers did the same. And you know what happened? The general reaction was outrage, but not at our abusers. No, my family was more pissed off about the replies from strangers than about the actual truth I exposed. My auntie's first message on seeing my post was, "Why are you posting family drama online for strangers to butt in and call us assholes when none of them know us?" Really, that's her concern? Not "oh my god, you were abused?" Just furious at the thought people on the internet might think she was a shitty person. She went off at me especially hard when she saw some of my replies in which I expressed my suspicion that they'd all known all along and chose to ignore it. She had the nerve to say, "You were always clothed, fed and had a roof over your head," as if that cancels out all the abuse and neglect we suffered. As if ticking those basic boxes made everything okay. Not to mention, even those things always came with conditions for us, never freely given, always with strings attached. And hi, Joe. If you're reading this, fuck you. My gran didn't deny any of it. Instead, she said she didn't think it was as bad as that, basically confessing she knew it was at least somewhat bad and still did absolutely nothing about it. Her big suggestion? That we all sit down with your dad and talk, that your dad's a well-meaning man. Yeah, absolutely not. The idea that she manipulated us into seeing our literal abusers again, even though she knew at least part of what we were suffering, makes me even more furious. What this whole confrontation revealed is just how rotten the core of this family's close circle is. My grandparents, aunties, and uncles all outed themselves as people who knew, at least in part, the abuse and neglect happening in our childhood. But they cared more about me airing it out, especially to strangers, and the supposed embarrassment it caused than the actual horrors we'd lived through. They even had the nerve to say I'd ruined my cousin's birthday party for airing out dirty laundry. The three of us, my siblings and I, blocked every single one of them. We want nothing more to do with them. But, thankfully, a few people actually stepped up for us. Our older cousins and one of our aunties came to our side. That auntie, in particular, told us she was truly disgusted, both with my dad and with her siblings, for knowing, or at least suspecting, what happened in our childhood, and for their gross, heartless responses after I reached out about it. She apologized to my brothers and me for everything we went through. I really want to believe she's sincere and that she had no idea what was happening to us, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a bit wary because, with all this coming out, I just don't know how she couldn't have had some clue if it was such a well-kept family secret. For now, we're keeping our relationship with her strictly over the phone, no in-person visits, at least not yet. We need to protect ourselves. So, yeah. That's where things stand right now. Update 2. The auntie who stuck by us rang on Tuesday and asked if we could meet somewhere public. We ended up in the car parked behind a Costa, boot to boot, and she pulled out this damp cardboard box with my mum's handwriting on the lid. For the kids. I swear my hands were shaking so much I could barely get the tape off. Inside were photos I'd never seen, a little dish with pressed flowers, a velvet ring box with my mum's engagement ring, and 2 envelopes, one addressed to Dee in my mum's handwriting, the other with our names on it in big, round letters like she'd written them slowly. The one to my dad wasn't some romantic letter. It was a note in case the worst happens language about the kids' money and a list of policy numbers, premium bonds, and an old passbook from a building society account with our names on the cover. The other envelope had birthday cards she'd filled in up to age 10 for each of us, still blank inside except the year and a scribbled "love you always." I don't think I breathed for 5 minutes. Annie said Barbara had told everyone years ago she'd been the old tat when they were decluttering. She didn't. Annie grabbed the box on her way out of Gron's house and put it in her garage. She said she genuinely forgot until this week because she never opened it, and I don't know whether to cry or scream about that part, but I'm grateful the box exists at all. We went home, put the ring on my finger, it's tiny, had to sit on my pinky, and started making calls. Premium bonds were still active. NS and I were actually really kind, told me how to prove identity and change the details, and when we did, we found out there's a decent amount there for each of us. Not life-changing, but enough that I burst into tears again just because it had our names on it, not hers, not his, ours. Then I called the building society about the old passbook. The account existed. It was closed in 2012, by a parent or guardian, the lady said, like she was reading a script she didn't want to read. We were all minors in 2012. She wouldn't say more on the phone, but she told me how to request the statements formally. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning there was a thick white envelope waiting at my brother's flat addressed to me from a solicitor I've never heard of, basically telling me to stop publishing defamatory allegations about my dad and Barbara. My stomach flipped. I sent a photo of the letter to the auntie's friend. She'd given me the number for a solicitor she knows, and this woman called me back within the hour. Her voice was calm in the way that makes you breathe properly for the first time in days. She told me truth is a defense, told me not to reply, and asked me to bring everything from the box and anything else we had to a meeting. We did. She read my mum's note twice. She looked genuinely angry when she put it down. She thinks there might be claims about the kids' account if the money was used for anything other than our benefit, and if not, at the very least there's leverage if they want to play games with letters. She drafted a response that basically said, "Stop contacting my client, and while we're here, please preserve all records relating to X, Y, Z. I could have kissed her." Later that afternoon, out of nowhere, I got a text from Barbara's daughter. The first message since we went no contact. It started with, "Mum says you're lying and you've always been dramatic," and then slid into this bit about how we didn't get cars for free, we earned them, and you lot were always in trouble. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't reply. 20 minutes later she sent, "You don't understand what it was like. Mum told us if anyone ever found out about the showers and stuff, social would split you three up and it would be our fault. She did what she had to do to keep you together." I sat on the kitchen floor until my brother found me there. They knew. They knew exactly what was happening to us and they dressed it up as saving us. The mental gymnastics is actually insane. Because I started making formal requests, I sent a subject access request to my old school, too. I didn't even know if they'd have anything this far out. Today, the deputy head emailed me with scanned pages from my safeguarding file. There it is in black ink, teacher notes about me coming in quiet and jumpy, a bruise on my thigh shaped like a hand, the netball coach's concern, my older brother turning up late to pick me up with a split lip, the school ringing home and speaking to my dad and then to my gran, and a no further action note after some meeting I wasn't told about. My name and date of birth in a box. It was like reading a case study about a stranger. I forwarded it to the solicitor, then sat and stared into space for a while because there's a difference between knowing you were abused and seeing a form that uses those words about you when you were 10. We kept getting unknown numbers ringing. Then Barbara turned up at my workplace reception with a Tupperware of brownies and this fixed smile, telling the receptionist she was my mum and that she was here to apologize. I refused to come down. Security had to ask her to leave when she started raising her voice about me being ungrateful and how she kept a roof over my head. My manager came and stood with me at the top of the stairs like a bouncer. Later, the solicitor sent a letter telling them to stop showing up anywhere near us, and that if it happens again she'll involve the police. The brownies went in the bin. The only bright brightness in all this is my mum's ring. We took it to a jeweler on Saturday morning. He cleaned it, measured me, told me it was a beautiful old cut and that it would suit being resized. When he passed it back on a little velvet tray, I tried it on and it slid perfectly onto my middle finger, like it had been waiting 20 years for me to come back for it. I wore it out of the shop with my heart beating in my throat. We went straight from there to the post office to send off our deed poll forms. We're changing our surnames to Mums. All three of us. My older brother put the envelopes in the red pillar box one after the other and said, "There. That's that. I don't know what happens next. There'll be bank statements or there won't. There'll be another letter or they'll crawl back under their rocks. Maybe nothing can be done about the past in a way that looks good on paper. But I have a ring on my finger that belonged to my mother, a box full of proof that our lives happen the way we remember, and for the first time in years, I feel like what we say about ourselves is louder than what anyone else says about us. That's enough for now." Update 3. The deed poll certificates came through on Thursday morning, heavy paper with our mum's surname in black type and my new signature sitting there looking like it had been mine for years. The receptionist at work looked at it and then at me and said, "Do you want me to change your badge now?" And 10 minutes later I was walking around with a lanyard that didn't have his name on it anywhere. Stupidly small, stupidly huge. I went to the loo and cried, then went back to my desk and ordered a pizza with our mum's name on the account because I could. The building society envelope turned up that afternoon like a brick. They'd sent photocopies of everything. Yellowing transaction sheets from before I could write my own name properly, then a neat line where it all stops, and a withdrawal form with closed funds released stamped across it. There's a box on the form that says reason for closure and someone's written consolidation for children's use in this tied up right hand I would have known anywhere. They'd printed the check image on the next page. Payee, cash. Signature, my dad's. Underneath it, in biro, witness, B, and Barbara's full name in swoopy letters like she'd practiced it. The teller's checklist has ticked ID seen, passport and then someone scribbled the last 4 digits. It wasn't like seeing a stranger had done it. It was like watching him walk out the door with us in his pocket. Our solicitor had us in her office at 9 the next morning. She had already run a company's house search on him before we even sat down. She scanned the forms, then went very still at the word witness. He closed a bare trust account into cash, she said, mostly to herself. That's bold. She printed a letter of claim while we were still sitting there that essentially said, in legal Her Majesty language, "You took the children's money, tell us exactly where it went," and then started copying in the insurer names from Mum's note. We sent officers to the insurers from her computer. It felt like folding paper planes and launching them into wild air and then hearing the thud of one actually hitting a door. One of them hit fast. On Monday an insurance company rang her and then conference called me in. The man on the phone sounded like he'd been told to be a robot and couldn't quite manage it. He confirmed a policy number from Mum's note, said it was written for the benefit of named minors, trustees listed as my dad and my gran, and appointed in full in 2015. Appointed to whom? Our solicitor asked. He hesitated. To the trustees, for onward management. And the onward management? We cannot see that. He emailed a PDF of the appointment form. There they were. Dad's block capitals, Gran's careful old lady signature, 2 little lines where our names should have been if it had been done as an actual transfer into something with us on it. The declaration box that's supposed to say how it will be held for the children was left blank. My throat locked tight and wouldn't unlock for a good minute. She asked him for the payment details under subject access. He said they'd prepare a pack. He sounded ill. It didn't get to sit and settle. That afternoon my phone lit up with a withheld number and a cutting voice telling me I had been warned and that turning up with lawyers was harassment. Barbara's solicitor, apparently, or whoever is playing one in their kitchen. While I was still in that phone call, a different number rang my older brother. It was a PC from the local station saying Barbara had reported us for harassing her on the internet and at her home. He came round, sat on our borrowed second-hand sofa, accepted a glass of tap water, listened, looked at the solicitor's letters, took copies of the workplace incident report where she turned up with brownies and had to be removed, and then said quietly that he was making a note under the harassment warning scheme for them, not us. He told us if she appears again anywhere near our homes or work to ring 999 and to print off the preserve records bit of the letter and stick it to the inside of the front door. He patted the dog that isn't ours that we were looking after for a neighbor, told her she was a good girl, and left. Late that night my old netball coach found me on Facebook and asked if she could email me. I sent her the solicitor's address. 10 minutes later a scanned statement came through with her married name at the top and a page of her saying that she'd raised concerns with the school about marks and demeanor and was told it was being managed by the family. I couldn't stop reading the bit where she'd written, I remember, my name, coming to training with hair still wet and apologizing for being naughty, like she'd tried to triangulate the exact shape of that night and hold it still with a pen. The solicitor wrote gold in the margin in tidy print. It keeps coming in twos. The other two arrived like this, an email pinged from my stepsister with no subject line at 2:11. It said, you don't have to reply, I just needed to send this somewhere that's not mum. There was a Dropbox link. In the folder were videos from what must have been a little point and shoot camera, shaky, badly lit, all knees and carpets and close-ups of people's chins. In one Barbara is filming her cakes at Christmas. In another we're all in the garden and you can hear my mum's best friends laugh in the background from before. And then there's one where the camera is on the floor, lens pointed at the skirting board. You can see shoes and you can hear her voice, bright and clipped, say, cold will make you think. Somebody, my older brother, says, in a voice that's trying very hard not to shake, I'm sorry. There's a slapping noise, and then Dad says, like he's reading out a headline, disrespect won't be tolerated. I watched half of it and then closed my laptop and put it on the kitchen counter and stood in the dark and breathed. At 10 the next morning our solicitor had the video on a memory stick and was writing to the police specialist child protection email with historic abuse evidence enclosed, and I sat on her visitor chair and watched the back of her head and imagined Barbara foaming at the mouth when she realizes what a Facebook memory can do 10 years later. A DC from the safeguarding team rang an hour later and said they wanted to take statements formally. He said the word offense like it was a weight he was putting down in the middle of the room to measure against everything else. Gran rang in the afternoon. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail that started with my name is, Gran's name, I'm calling about my grandchildren, like she was dealing with council tax, then drifted into crying and I didn't know what they were doing with papers. I thought it was. I don't know what I thought, and then, your dad's not well, which would have worked on me at 17 and now just made my jaw clench. I sent the audio to the solicitor and blocked her number for now. There was one thing that felt like clean air and not a fight. Our aunt who brought the box over found more of Mum in her loft. Not money, not paperwork, just a camcorder tape with my mum reading Peepo. To a baby who is probably me because the baby keeps sticking her whole hand in her mouth and my older brother dances around in his socks. We took it to a place on the high street that still develops photos and the man took the tape like it was a relic and told us he'd have a digital version for us by Friday. The three of us walked home with a bag of chips split between us and my ring catching the light from passing buses, and for 10 minutes we didn't talk about banks or courts or forms. We argued about whether Dad's ears were always that big or if age has done something terrible to them, and my younger brother laughed so hard he got salt down his jumper. Then the doorbell went at 9:30 and there was a thick hand-delivered envelope on the mat with my old surname spelled wrong. I opened it on the floor. It was a without prejudice offer letter from Dad's solicitors with a figure in the middle of the page that made my stomach drop and then harden. They'd like to draw a line under matters, they wrote, in exchange for a confidentiality undertaking. The number wouldn't even cover a used Ford, never mind a decade. Our solicitor didn't even blink. She forwarded it to herself with one sentence, "Thank you for confirming liability." Then she drafted another letter of claim for the insurance appointment and asked the building society again for the footage from the 2012 withdrawal if they have it. They'll say they only keep 6 years, she said. Sometimes people forget to delete. Let's ask. This morning I answered a phone call to my name, my mum's name, from a detective in a suit who said he sits with economic crime and would like to meet about the trust and the appointment form. He said words I didn't expect to hear attached to my life, like misappropriated and beneficial owners. He asked if I could come to the station at 3 with my brothers and the paperwork. I said yes. I put the phone down and looked at the ring and said out loud, "We're going to be late for work," and then laughed because I have never sounded like my mum before, but there she was in my mouth, bossy and alive. I don't know how this ends. But the paper is stacking up with our names on it, and people with actual badges and job titles are saying words out loud that match what it felt like. He can't say it didn't happen. She can't brownies and smile her way out of a video where her own voice is on tape. And when I sign my name now I don't have to haul his around with me. That alone is worth showing up for. Update 4. We went to the station at 3 with the folder that is now a brick, and my ring hot from my hand. The detective from economic crime introduced himself and then brought in the DC from safeguarding, and the 4 of us sat in a room that smelled like tea and carpet cleaner while he said words like fraud by abusive position and child cruelty without flinching. He had already printed our withdrawal slip and the appointment form and put yellow tabs on the bits that made my stomach turn. He asked us to walk him through the money and Mum's note and then the video. I said it out loud the way you say your name at a counter, steady and slow, and he wrote it all down. They took our statements formally. He slid the MG11 forms across the table and the pen left a groove in the paper where my new surname sits. He said they were issuing preservation notices to the building society and the insurers today and applying for production orders in the morning. Whatever they deleted, if they deleted, we will ask for the audit trail, he said, like it was a normal sentence. While we were still there, our solicitor emailed to say one of the insurers had sent a data pack under our subject access. 12 pages, the sort code and account number the money was pushed into in 2015 sitting there like a postcode on a Christmas card. I read out the numbers and the detective glanced at his colleague and said, "That's local, and then, we'll get the bank to confirm beneficial ownership." He wouldn't tell us whose it was yet, but when he said joint my older brother laughed once in that way that isn't a laugh and the DC looked at him like she'd like to put a blanket round his shoulders even, though he's 6'2". Safeguarding asked if we'd do an Abe interview for the historic stuff. I asked if that wasn't for children. She said it's for best evidence, and that the room is blue and comfortable and we don't have to do it today. I said yes anyway because I wanted it on tape where the cold draft used to be. Outside the station, a woman in a raincoat called my name, our name now, and I nearly didn't recognize Gran because I've only been seeing her as a number to block for weeks. She had a paper bag in her lap and when she stood up I saw her hands shaking. "I'm sorry," she said, like she was practicing for a receptionist, and then she took out a lined pad page and a copy of something that looked like it had been through a photocopier too many times. The lined page was her writing. They said it was for the children, and I didn't understand the form, and a line at the bottom saying she was willing to give a statement to the police. The copy was a check stub from 2015 with my dad's handwriting in the memo bit, transfer per policy, and a number that makes my brain go airless. I didn't touch her. I took the papers. I said, "Give them to the police," and she nodded and said she had an appointment for a voluntary interview next week. It felt like the floor tilted half a degree back towards level. We picked up the digitized tape on the way home. The man behind the counter had put it on a USB with a sticker that said Peepo in capitals. We sat on the floor with our backs against the sofa and the dog that isn't ours asleep between my feet and watched Mum reading and then swaying a baby who definitely eats fists for fun. At the end there's that old camcorder lag where it keeps recording after you think you've turned it off, and she looked up at the lens for a second like she remembered it was there and said my name and then, "Come on, you lot," in a voice I have been teaching myself not to need. I didn't cry until my younger brother said, "That's exactly how you said it this morning," and then it was ridiculous, the 3 of us doing a damp relay race to the kitchen for toilet roll. At 2:03 my phone lit up with another email from my stepsister. No subject again, just, "I gave my phone to the police. I am sorry." I didn't know what else to do. There were screenshots this time of a WhatsApp chat with Barbara from last week. "Delete everything," from Barbara. "Don't send them anything, I'll handle it. You know nothing about the money," and then, "You say we helped them wash because they were dirty from playing outside." It felt like watching someone build a raft out of paper towels. I forwarded it to the solicitor and slept for 3 minutes with my eyes closed. The building society wrote back to our solicitor this morning with something she called Till Diary and branch notes. It's a photocopy of a printout of a screen, dated 2012, with a teller ID and a remark that says large closure, child AC, cash, manager override, then a line of codes I don't understand and a yes next to AML reviewed. The solicitor said they can't disclose if they filed a SAR and we shouldn't ask them to, but the detective can. She sent the pack straight to him with "for production" in the subject line and CC'd me. It is the first time I have seen a bank's own notes say child AC. I held the paper to my chest like it might warm back up. At lunchtime the DC rang to say they'd brought Dad and Barbara in for voluntary interviews under caution. She said no comment lives next to be careful what you admit and that one of them had a go at neither of those and then remembered. She wouldn't tell me which, but she said bail conditions are in place now and that they include no contact with us by any method. "If a brownie appears, call us," she said, dry. I printed the conditions out and put them on the fridge with a magnet that says York from a school trip I wasn't allowed to go on and laughed until my stomach hurt because either you laugh or you put your fist through plasterboard and the deposit on the flat is not worth that. The Abe room was blue. We did the interviews in the afternoon because it felt like if we waited I might never do it. There were 2 chairs and a camera and a box of fidget toys, and at one point I realized I had been turning a rubber ring inside out in my hands for half an hour and that my mother's ring was sitting plain on my finger and I had both rings and both names and both versions of me in one place and it didn't break me. When we came out, the DC asked if we had somewhere safe to be this evening and we said yes, our flat, our dog that isn't ours until 6 when our owner finishes his shift. At 5 the solicitor called. Another insurer had sent their pack. This one has a payment trail with the words appointed for minors on the top and then a botched narrative that literally says house improvements next to the transfer line. They wrote the story for us, she said, and then, We'll have to get the invoices they use to justify that. If it's a new kitchen with a wine fridge, it's not a trust investment. I could hear her smile go sharp. She asked if we wanted to make a civil claim now or wait. I said I wanted every piece of paper before I put our names on a court form and that I liked watching the stack grow taller than their denials. At 6, my manager handed me my new pass with my photo and our mom's name and said, "I've changed your profile on the system. Do you want to do your bank next?" And I said yes because the world was obviously in a mood to say yes back to me. The man at the bank asked me to sign on the screen and then looked at his monitor and said, "Congratulations on your new name," like I got married to myself. When we got home there was a brown envelope with the police crest on it and inside was a victim of crime information leaflet with a sticky note on the front in the DC's handwriting. "We'll be in touch CPS. There was also a postcard half shoved through the letterbox from the photo shop, "Photos ready." The nice man had printed stills from the camcorder for us without asking. There's one of Mum mid-laugh, eyes shut, head tipped back. I stuck it to the wall with washi tape because I am not a blue tack person and because I wanted something in the flat to be soft and mine on purpose. At 9 my phone buzzed with a number I don't have saved. A man with that careful voice that means he has to make sure you understand every word told me he was from our dad's bank's fraud team and that he'd been contacted by police. He said that as part of their response they were freezing a joint account pending inquiry. He said he couldn't tell me more, but then he said, "You should be aware there will be restrictions on that account," in the tone of someone who has been told to say nothing and is saying something anyway. I looked at my brothers and thought about the time he told us there wasn't enough money for Paris and wanted to climb onto the roof and howl at the moon until it broke into bits. We took the premium bonds checks to the post office first thing this morning and put them in a savings account, with all 3 of our names on it. The woman behind the counter asked what we wanted to call the account and my older brother said, without thinking, "For the kids," and then went red and smiled like he hadn't in years. On the way back, my phone rang with a private number and the detective said, "We'll be sending a victim personal statement template. And, this is separate, would you be willing to give permission for us to talk to your old GP's practice?" He said he'd seen the entry on the school file about the bruise and the split lip and wanted to cross-reference. I said yes and watched a bus go past with an advert for a mortgage company that says make home mean something and thought, yes, all right. Let's. I don't know what the next letter says. Maybe they'll try a bigger number with more zeros and a thicker font and a tighter NDA. Maybe there'll be someone at the door with a face from before who wants to hand me a casserole and a plea. But there's a blue room with my voice on tape, a bank note that says child AC, an insurer who wrote house improvements like they were describing their own indictment, and a bail condition that keeps her away from my desk whether she's carrying brownies or a Bible. There's Mum laughing on a wall that smells like fresh paint. There's our name on a debit card that won't bounce when I buy chips.